Do not worry. The ITUC staff will give you a code to use on a computer inside the room. So Felix and I will be present in the room to monitor the election process. We will be accompanied by 2 scrutineers appointed by the candidates. So Luca Vicentini has assigned Omar Farouk Osman from Somalia, and Kamal Azkan has put forward Kıvanç Eliasik from Turkey for this purpose, and they will also be in the voting room. Hopefully this is clear. Voting will start at 12:45 and will end at 2:30 unless all votes are cast sooner, which if all the votes are cast, we can close earlier, but we will allow for all the votes to be cast. The Credentials Committee will meet immediately after the vote closes to validate the results, and we will post a special report with the outcome on the Congress website at that time. So it will be immediate. We will also formally announce the results in tomorrow morning's committee report to the Congress. So I hope this is clear and that we can have a smooth election, because brothers and sisters, it is time to practice what we preach. The labor movement chooses its leaders democratically. That's what we do. And so now it is time for us to jointly decide who will have the nearly impossible task of following in Sharon's footsteps as the next ITUC General Secretary and lead us into the future. So, and I also would like to just recognize Sharon, and it's hard to accept that this is all happening now, but we will move forward. We thank you, Sharon, for all of your years and your leadership, and for really breaking down barriers for all of us. We are ready to move forward. Good luck to our candidates, and we look forward to a successful election. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Sister Liz Shula, for that report. Thank you immensely. So, colleagues, the report of the Credentials Committee have been presented. I want to propose that we adopt the report. Before I move forward to invite the candidates to speak to us, can we adopt the reports, please? Adopted. At this point, colleagues, we will then invite the candidates to speak to us. They will have 15 minutes each to be able to speak to us. I will therefore go ahead to invite Kamel Ozan to step forward to the podium and speak to us. Kamal, you are invited, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, brothers and sisters. I'm very proud and honored to stand before you as a candidate for the position of General Secretary of our ITUC. At this wonderful global parliament of working classes, we hear the realities of the ground. Indeed, these are desperate times for most of the world's people. There's the pandemic and its lasting effects. There is war, hatred and bigotry and conflict, up to and including political violence. This is being cultivated by the extreme right, fascism. There are gross inequalities that are destabilizing our communities, our societies, and our political systems. Democracy, brothers and sisters, is under attack, not only in dictatorships, but in some countries that are still democratic. Trade unions are leading the fight for freedom and democracy. In some cases, they may be weaker than they once were, but we are still the largest and most representative organizations in countries where they are permitted to exist. Even in some countries where workers have been denied their rights, and many leaders are in prison, such as Myanmar and Belarus, workers and their trade unions continue to struggle. The ITUC, brothers and sisters, must be able to effectively mobilize to support courageous trade unionists who are putting their lives on the line. It should also prioritize others fighting for freedom, like the women in Iran, who are refusing to do what they are told. If freedom wins, we win. We certainly continue to campaign to free our brother Yaroshuk. The International Trade Union Confederation is the vehicle for change, ensuring that workers' priorities are central to the political debate responding to these crises. Brothers and sisters, attacks on women and girls have expanded in households, but also as part of government policy and far beyond Iran. Hardly a day goes by without new restrictions on women's rights in Afghanistan. Russia has deployed it in their invasion of Ukraine, along with other atrocities against civilians. However, it has also become common in Syria and Iraq, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Central America, and in many other zones of conflict. Peace is an essential trade union priority. However, it cannot be a piece of the graveyard. Conflict is inevitable between and within countries and groups, including between capital and labor. It needs to be resolved, or it will eventually explode. Its successful resolution is grounded in trade union and other human rights. The future of democracy depends on the force and effectiveness of its institutions. One of these institutions is the trade union movement. Without free trade unions, there is no democracy. And final proof of this is the victory of our great leader, Lula, for which we congratulate our Brazilian comrades. The same goes to our companions from Colombia with the victory of Gustavo Petro. If trade union organizations are to be legitimate and powerful, they must be democratic. Democracy is not just something for export. Just as governance in political democracies must be of, by, and for the people, trade unions must be controlled by their members. For the ITUC member organizations, free trade unions that meet that test, we need to ensure that the ITUC, in its governance practices, does as well. President, Congress, sisters and brothers, the ITUC needs to help shift the balance of power that has given capital more influence than governments. Corporations and banks are operating effectively and globally. Too often, politicians are at their service rather than the other way around. Corporate power is also slowing the fight to save our planet. Limitations on emissions will not just happen. They require government leadership, industrial policy, and the full involvement of social partners to deal with implementation and impact at national, sectoral, and enterprise level. Progress on carbon emissions should further social justice and protect workers. A just transition should mean more than paying off workers who lose their jobs. They should be able to use and develop their skills and access other employment. And changing jobs should not be at the price of losing rights, including trade union representation. Brothers and sisters, our planet is burning. Workers and their unions cannot leave decisions about the future of our jobs and our planet to multinational companies and market forces. We believe we can change the world for the better. What is needed is a plan. The only morally defensible answer is to guarantee workers a just transition. If workers are expected to support this urgently needed transformation, there must be something in it for them. If workers are expected to stop what they are doing today, we must be able to tell them what they will be doing tomorrow. This is the time, sisters and brothers, to build alliances, to globalize social justice. The public is acutely aware that the world is growing more and more unfair. Their rightful anger should not be siphoned off by extremists, but should find democratic expressions. There is a threat to, but also an opportunity for democratic change. It is not the time for business as usual. The protection and respect of rights of workers to form and join trade unions and to bargain collectively has been attacked by dictatorships and by anti-union employers. For many years, employers have attacked the ILO, and some basics have become a taboo, particularly freedom of association, collective bargaining, and the right to strike. Now it is time for us to build an offensive workers' strategy, to reclaim the ILO,
which has exploded in recent decades in developing countries and developed countries alike, has made organizing and bargaining difficult and in some cases impossible. And this has continued in new forms like platform and gig work. It has undermined trade union rights without technically repealing their protection. Let's look at what is happening in the United Kingdom. We see workers fired and rehired on lower conditions. Completely disgusting. India has turned to be a laboratory of wild capitalism in the world. However, we all stand up on the 2nd of December when our Indian comrades once again stopped the country. Organizing has always been blocked by fear. It may be the fear of being arrested or fired. It may also be the fear of the non-renewal of a temporary contract or not having the opportunity to obtain unlimited employment status. Organizing is everybody's job in the trade union movement. However, it is not the same job for everybody. The ITUC should use its limited resources, means to do things that cannot be done better by national centers or by global unions or their sectorial affiliates. This means protecting and enabling trade union rights that make possible for workers to organize and bargain, and strengthening global systems and mechanisms. That includes the defense of rights, including the right to strike, and their supervision in the ILA, mobilizing to gain support from other international bodies for those rights, and continuing development of workers' capital strategies, as well as efforts on business and human rights and due diligence. It should also be ready to mobilize support for campaigns of global unions and national centers. And fighting for trade union rights and democracy is not an abstraction or something that I have learned from reading the books. I have spent years doing trade union work on every continent. I have talked with, but more importantly, listened to trade unions, large and small, and learned of their challenges, opportunities, and how their culture combined with our trade union values. However, long before that, I was shaped by my own experience. I believe the ITUC must stand as a strong campaigner and a good negotiator. We will certainly redesign and invest in our campaigning capacity. Strong campaigns of the ITUC will mean growth, growth in numbers, growth in activism, growth in commitment to international solidarity. With ITUC's strength placed behind national organizing efforts, we will build a forward momentum in membership numbers everywhere. Efficient, result-oriented organizing campaigns are needed in the Global South, but also in the Global North. Let me tell you this, the global union movement cannot be successful while the United States, the world's largest economy, remain largely unorganized, particularly in its south. The ITUC will certainly intensify its work with our US sisters and brothers to strengthen this effort. An important role of the ITUC will be the coordination of global campaigns throughout the biggest global corporations and their supply chains and production networks, together with the global unions. And ITUC will bring together the best talent in the global labor movement to develop proposals for global organizing campaigns that bring results on the ground. For a genuine negotiation, dear colleagues, comrades, sisters and brothers, ITUC will continue to take this opportunity to put unions at the center of a new global industrial relations system and cross-border social dialogue that responds to the concept of human rights due diligence throughout companies' own operations and their supply chains. The world cannot continue with this abusive and exploitative business model, and this is why supply chain strategy is key for the union movement. Likewise, disruptive models of development and unfair trade practices, such as those pursued by China, suppress the economic and social rights of workers. This poses a significant threat to sustainable development and drives downward the pressure on workers' rights around the world. Sisters and brothers, this is the time of transformation of the world, but also for the ITUC. This will be a tough decision to make on priorities beyond the general discussions of this Congress. They will be based on the realities of the organization's financial situation and capacity. There will be a need to concentrate on the ITUC's mandate, to institute sound management, and to ensure transparency. If I am elected as your General Secretary, you will receive full information on issues, and your elected representatives on the General Council and the Executive Bureau will be encouraged and enabled to discuss and debate issues and to take actions. And the ITUC will listen to, be close to, and serve as a consensus vehicle for its affiliates. There will be close cooperation with regional organizations, as well as with the global unions and ITUC, to support each other's work to strengthen the Council of Global Unions. We can build a powerful organization if we concentrate on trade union values, build agreement and engagement, and reach out to others. We can be the lever that moves the world towards social justice. Within one Congress period, my dear sisters and brothers, this leadership will transform the ITUC to be progressive, to be democratic, to be feminist, and to be ecologist. Gender is a key matter to unlock the door to address the root causes of inequality. An enormous power of ITUC's power comes from the inspirational women leaders throughout the movement. And ITUC will increase its focus and energy in the global march for women's empowerment. If we certainly ensure gender parity in the leadership composition, Congress, sisters and brothers, at this time of massive global upheaval, we have an opportunity, an obligation. We must seize the moment to regenerate the world with a rebalanced social contract based on social justice and workers' rights. At the end, this requires a struggle, unity, solidarity, with a strong union movement at the forefront. We know that the establishment is powerful, but our movement is even more powerful when we fight together in unity with Global South, Global North, men and women, and youth. I have laid down my vision in my manifesto for our movement. My stance here is for a political project rather than seeking an individual position. I am happy to see that there's a widespread support, expectation, demand for this political project. I know there are serious challenges that new leadership needs to take on. I have the sufficient energy, determination, commitment, and dedication to drive this mission. My dear sisters and brothers, colleagues, I welcome the challenge and I seek your support. Solidarity forever.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brother Kamal. Thank you. Let me now invite Luca Versatini to take the stage. Thank you.
This podium is very low for Kemal and myself. Brothers and sisters, compañeros y compañeras, camarades, compagni e amici, also in my language. The global trade union movement faces enormous challenges that require... Oh my God, my speech has disappeared. Sorry. Things that happen. Here we are. Sorry. The global trade union, I hope you don't count these few minutes that I... The global trade union movement faces enormous challenges that require ambitious action and internal cohesion. As a candidate, I have put unity and change at the core of my proposals. And I'm ready to take on board the plural political views and regional perspectives of all affiliates, including the different positions that emerged at the last Congress in Copenhagen. And I am committed to build together a forward-looking global trade union agenda. In my manifesto, I have set some key policy priorities for the future in full coherence with the Congress statement, and I have also indicated some principles to innovate our internal way to operate in a democratic and inclusive manner. Last but not least, I have set a roadmap to empower the regional structures of the ITUC and criteria for selection of a gender and regionally balanced leadership team. My forefront priority is peace and democracy. These are the founding values of the trade union movement and among the most pressing emergencies at the global level. Recent conflicts in many countries and regions put people's lives and security at risk while increasing inequalities and social injustice. Our thoughts and concrete solidarity action go to our comrades in Ukraine, to all the refugees fleeing countries in war, to trade unionists in jail in Belarus, our brother Karashuk, together with the others, and in many other places, to the populations and workers of Iran, Yemen, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Turkey, Hong Kong, and all the other countries in the world where there are wars and conflicts, where trade unionists and working people are persecuted, where human and workers' rights are violated, including in Palestine, where we keep denouncing workers' oppression and fighting for the only solution possible to protect workers and build peace: 2 states for 2 peoples. The rise of the extreme right, neo-fascist and racist movements, and authoritarian and neoliberal regimes all over the world stem from such conflicts and from their economic and social consequences. This undermines democratic values and institutions and brings together unacceptable attacks on human, workers, and trade union rights and freedoms. The global trade union movement stands strongly in defense of peace and democracy. But comrades, political discussion is not enough. We need to deliver trade union campaigns, international solidarity actions, and institutional negotiations, especially for those countries and regions where trade unions are most under pressure. Building broad and strong trade union action and networks for peace, democracy, and fight against the far right must be at the core of the ITUC program for the future. In this respect, I want to congratulate our comrades and friends of Brazil for the fantastic victory of Lula. There is still hope in the world after that to have more democracy and social justice. This is a success of the trade union movement, a progressive change in Brazil which will have very positive effects on Latin America and on the rest of the world. A number of economic and social crises have hit working people over recent decades, including the consequences of COVID. A savage neoliberal agenda has heavily disrupted our economies, jobs, and social protection systems, while increasing poverty, social exclusion, informality, and inequalities. And now, the economic and social consequences of various conflicts, including the war in Ukraine, are generating an unprecedented energy speculation, with prices and inflation skyrocketing, recession and unemployment making working people pay the price again. It's high time for the global trade union movement to speak up and mobilize even more strongly for a new economic model, an economy at the service of people and not of corporate profits, based on sustainability, inclusiveness, equality, and social justice. We want public investment for quality jobs, climate and digital just transitions, universal public services and social protection. We want fair industrial and energy policies to resolve economic injustice in the world. We want progressive taxation, a fair trade agenda, and a radical reform of global economic rules to support public investment and debt cancellation. We want that multinational companies are obliged to respect fundamental labor and social standards, including in the supply chains. And most importantly, we want a global pay rise for workers to get their fair share and eradicate poverty. We will continue fighting to end inequalities affecting women, workers, and workers in all their diversity. Women have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Millions of women have lost their jobs with no guarantee they will return. The COVID-19 pandemic has widened the poverty gap between women and men. Wars and conflicts affect women the first, with persecutions, violence, and further discrimination. We must stop all this and put the achievement of gender equality at the center of all our policies and actions. Brothers and sisters, we confirm our commitment to contribute to the achievement of the Paris Agreement objectives, because there are no jobs on a dead planet. It's our responsibility to make a global just transition real for working people. Just transition cannot merely mean training and a bit of social protection to compensate for job disruption. Full employment through massive quality job creation and equality must be guaranteed to working people in the very same communities where jobs are going to be disrupted. And this can be achieved only through public investment, inclusive industrial and energy strategies, and universal labor and social protection. The role of trade unions to achieve a just transition through social dialogue, collective bargaining, and workers' participation is essential. Trade unions must be at the table, not only in countries where social dialogue is advanced. We have to implement trade union action on just transition through negotiations with institutions and employers, funding for trade union capacity building, and reinforce cooperation between global, sectoral, national, and local levels. For all these reasons, we need a new social contract. It is fundamental to construct fairer societies and labor communities everywhere in the world, and to defend and reinforce peace and democracy. We need a new social contract to protect fundamental rights and ensure universal social protection systems, to achieve sound labor and social legislation, including on gender equality and equal access to work. We need a new social contract to guarantee well-protected jobs, equal pay and fair working conditions for all through collective bargaining, social dialogue, and social legislation. We will act to match the new social contract with a new economic model, to fight against unemployment, poverty, inequality, precariousness, informality, and social exclusion, particularly for women, youth, and in the informal, digital, and platform economies. We will fight to guarantee the right to quality public education, training, and lifelong learning. We will fight to ensure protection of health and safety of workers and universal access to health care, medicines, and vaccines as fundamental human rights. And we will mobilize against any forms of discrimination and violence at work and in society based on gender, age, sexual identity, ethnic or migration background, ideology, religion, or other grounds. The role of the ILO on this is paramount and has to be enhanced and further developed by defending and reinforcing tripartism, setting of standards, and their effective enforcement. I would like to celebrate the historic victory we achieved at this year's ILC by winning recognition that a safe and healthy working environment is a fundamental right. Now and again, it will be up to us to make sure that all fundamental principles, rights, and conventions of the ILO won't just stay on paper, but are implemented and enforced by increasing trade union power. Brothers and sisters, as a candidate, I am firmly convinced that increasing global trade union power must be our fundamental common objective. We can achieve this together if we strengthen international solidarity and socio-political action, but also reinforce internal cooperation and unity. We must support each other in building stronger social dialogue and collective bargaining and in protecting workers and trade union rights everywhere. I am committed to increase coordination and mutual exchange between the ITUC leadership, the regional organizations and structures, and national trade union centers. I plan to visit all of you during the next mandate, if I'm elected, to understand the problems and needs in each of your country and bring you concrete solidarity, support, and action of the ITUC. I will work to reinforce the cooperation with the global unions and with the trade union representatives in the ILO, in ITUC, and in tripartite and multilateral structures where we can play a role in the interest of workers. It will be essential to strengthen the role of ITUC bodies, deliver effective planning and internal decision-making, intensify democratic participation and inclusion. We will have to further optimize human and financial resources and ensure that financial support is transparent and equal. We will have to make sure that the ITUC is a strong and inclusive global trade union where everybody has a voice and feels at home. Women and men, people of all sexual identities, migrants and indigenous people. We have to guarantee that all groups and minorities are given an opportunity and feel protected by the movement. And we must give young people a real chance to develop as they wish. The movement needs them. They are our future, and it is their right to build it with us. Comrades and friends, I think that the ITUC has achieved many important successes over last mandates, and I want to congratulate and express my admiration and gratitude to Sharon and her team for the impressive work they have delivered. Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you very much, all of you, comrades and friends, and be sure we will continue your work. Of course, as all of us, I have my own style and background, and if elected, there are things that I will change or I will do differently. My roots are in the Italian progressive and widely representative trade union movement, based on collective bargaining and organizing, on social dialogue and institutional negotiations, on strong mobilizing capacity and defense of democracy and peace. Over 33 years in the trade unions, I have been active at workplace, sectoral, local, national, European, and global level. I have negotiated and signed many collective agreements in my life and bargained legislation and restructuring processes. I've been acting in Europe, but also in international forums, and I've built cooperation with many of you, with brothers and sisters in the Mediterranean area, in Africa, in Latin America, in North America, and in Asia. I feel in myself living the cultures of Europe and the Latin world at the same time, of the North and the global South. To be a trade union leader, I've learned how important it is to ensure democracy and consensus. It's about involving and consulting all members, sharing information and knowledge, listening and understanding so we can make better decisions together. And it's also about implementing in practice, in our daily work, the values of equality, inclusion, non-discrimination, and democratic participation. I am deeply convinced that the global trade union movement has to do more for gender equality. We need to go further and ensure full gender parity in our internal life. We have been working together at this Congress to make gender representation fully respected in the composition of the future leadership, and I know we will succeed. But if I'm elected, I am committed that in the framework of the discussion of the review of our Constitution, full gender parity will have to be ensured in all our elections, including for the Secretariat of the ITUC. Brothers and sisters, I am very proud of the overwhelming support you have given me, and this has been an extraordinary democratic process that will lead today to an election. Let's make sure together that this moment of democracy makes the ITUC stronger in unity and solidarity. When I joined the movement, I did so because I believed that trade unions are best placed to make the world more just, equal and inclusive, a community of solidarity where everybody can enjoy a decent and fair life. I still hold this belief, and I would be enormously honored to lead the ITUC as your General Secretary, doing my best to deliver for working people during a time of crisis and help shape a new vision for peace, democracy, sustainable recovery and social justice. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention et votre soutien. Viva la Confederación Sindical Internacional. Solidarity to this fantastic Congress.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, on your behalf, let me thank our two candidates. We have heard from them, and we will then adjourn this session, and voting will open from 12:45 to 2:30, or when the voting process is actually completed, and it's going to be in room 101. I request that leaders of delegation should go and cast their votes, and don't forget to carry your identity, because each leader of delegation will then be identified before casting your vote. Also, colleagues, don't forget that the Congress Forum will also continue from 15 hours to 18 hours. In this hall, we'll have the Inclusive Union Movement, and also in Melbourne 1 Hall, we'll have the Congress Forum on Organizing. So as our leaders go to cast their vote, I urge others after the lunch break to go and attend those two forums. And once again, don't forget that tomorrow by 8:45, every delegate is expected to be seated in this room. And lastly, I want to once again remind us that you need to carry your identity to go and cast your vote. Thank you very much. I therefore bring this session to a close. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Thank you very much.